I've had my GT-R for about 2 months now, so I thought I'm at a good point to make a 5 things I hate about my GT-R video. And if I had both hands, I'd use air quotes around hate, because none of the issues that I have on my list are individually or collectively big enough to make me not want this car, but just things that I've noticed over the last couple of months and about 1,000 miles that are either annoying or things that are just interesting for people that want to know more about this car. So in no particular order, here's the 5 things I hate about my GT-R. So number 1 on my list is the somewhat outdated interface in the center console. My car's a 2014. I know in 2017 they did do some refresh. Most of the format is about the same, although the new one now comes with Apple CarPlay. Mine doesn't have that. Something I really miss out of my 2019 Corvette is the integration of Android Auto, since I'm not an Apple guy. Android Auto interface that I had in the Corvette, and that I also have an aftermarket one in my Toyota 4Runner. It's just really clean integration with the phone and easy to use Waze and all the Spotify music applications that I enjoy. The interface made by Polyphony on the GT-R is pretty amazing, with all the different dials that you can set up and the different custom organization of each one of the dials that are available. But the overall console does look late 2000s, and again, I mean, the carbon fiber trim looks cool, but a little bit outdated, and the absence of having the Android Auto interface is a bit annoying. So number 2 on my list are the rear back seats. So I'm not a fan necessarily of having back seats at all. The last 5 sports cars I've had didn't have back seats. This car only comes with back seats, so that's fine, but they're pretty impractical. So I'm a pretty small driver, and I sit pretty forward in my seat. But with as forward as I am, the seat is practically touching the rear seat behind me, so nobody can actually sit in it. One time, myself and 3 people about my size went to lunch, and we all were able to fit, but it was extremely uncomfortable and impractical. When myself, my wife, and daughter go out, my wife can sit in the passenger seat and scoot up forward enough that my daughter can get back there, but that's about the extent of it. So kind of unclear why they even bothered to put rear seats in this car at all, seeing that under normal circumstances it's not something that you can use. And honestly, if you're going more than a couple miles with full-grown adults, both with the legroom and the headroom, with the way that the rear glass slopes down, makes it so that it's not really a 4-person vehicle. So number 3 on my list, and it was something that was relatively easy to remedy, were the squealing brakes. So when I first got the car, I noticed actually as I was driving home and coming to slow rolling stops that the brakes started squealing pretty loudly. I called the dealership, and actually, in looking through the forums, it turns out that squealing brakes with the factory Brembos are actually commonplace and pretty standard. I guess the brake compound in the Brembo brake pads that come with the car have a very high metal content, presumably for heat dissipation and whatever else makes a good brake compound. But the side effect is that on the street, when you're doing those slow stops to a stop sign or a stoplight, you get a lot of squealing noise, and that was pretty annoying. So again, pretty easy fix. I replaced the factory pads with the Hawk HPS brake pads. It's a compound that dusts quite a bit less, and it also doesn't make the squealing noise, although it seems that it's also not really a track pad. It's a pad for the streets. Honestly, this car probably won't see any real track time short of quarter-mile drag strip runs that, where braking, at least intense braking, isn't nearly as critical. Next on my list is the automatic transmission in automatic mode. In manual mode, it's pretty exciting. This is actually my first non-manual car, or non-manual sports car that I've had, and I was skeptical about how much I'd enjoy driving the automatic, flappy paddle gearbox. So it's great. It shifts a lot faster than I ever could. I've gotten pretty used to it pretty quickly. But the thing that I can't stand is that when I leave it in full auto mode, the transmission wants to get to the 6th gear almost as soon as possible. So when I leave my house in the morning, driving through my neighborhood, by the time I get to 35 miles an hour, the car's already in 6th gear. My assumption is that it's to meet whatever EPA requirements there are for a car that can be sold in California and other places in the country and presumably around the world where emissions regulations are strict. But it's incredibly annoying, because then when you're in 6th gear and if you try to slam on the gas and you're only going 35 miles an hour, it very quickly wants to jump down to, you know, almost second or third gear, but there's a lot of jarring bouncing around as it's doing that. Most of the time when I'm driving, when I'm not on the freeway, right now I'm driving to the Nissan dealership, which is about an hour away, which is why I found time to make this video. It's fine to stay in automatic because most of the time you're in 6th gear, and if it wants to go down to 5th as you come into traffic, that's great. And just one less thing you need to pay attention to. But when you're driving around the city, the automatic mode drives me nuts just because it wants to get to 6 immediately and does its best to stay in 6th or 5th gear all of the time, even again when you're under 40 miles an hour. So the last on my list, and probably the most prominent, and the thing that I see on most people's 5 things I hate about the GT-R list, is the backup beeping noise that the car makes when you put the transmission into reverse. The ludicrous thing about it is that when you go into reverse and it makes the beeping sound, that beeping is only internal to the cabin. When you go outside of the car, you can't hear it. So it's not like a big truck that has low visibility that beeps to let other people know that you're coming in case I can't see you. It's literally just to let me, the driver, know that I'm in reverse. Although I know I'm in reverse because I'm going backwards. The display also shows the rear view camera, so it's clear that I'm going in reverse. Not sure why they needed to add the beeping sound, but it's pretty annoying. There's actually an aftermarket third-party option where I think for about $300 they have some type of bypass unit to get rid of the beeping. For as little as I'm actually in my reverse gear, $300 sounds pretty excessive just to get rid of a beeping that I'm going to hear for, you know, less than 60 seconds in a day. But honestly, every time I do it, I have considered. So we'll see if I ever end up there. But yeah, not clear why they have that beeping noise. I did see a YouTube video once, and I think the guy was in a GT-R, where he was doing a quarter-mile run. I think he backed up to get back to the start line. When he actually slammed on the gas to go, he actually went backwards. I'm not sure if he had the beeping sound in his car, maybe he had it bypassed. It may be something that they've changed in future years of the car, but for the 2014, it's got that weird reverse beeping, and yeah, it drives me nuts. So anyway, those are the 5 things that I hate about my GT-R. Again, I absolutely love the GT-R overall. It's been a dream car of mine ever since it came out, or when I first saw it, and I think about 2009. I remember actually at an LA Auto Show. It was probably not the initial debut, but one of them where I remember going there and taking pictures and it being the most talked about car, the entire car show. And actually before that, the R34, when I was in Japan in early 2000s, or maybe it was late 2000s, that I went to a Nissan dealership and they had the R34 there and in that famous blue color. And I even got this book. It's a hardcover book. That's just one of the promotional books about the features of the car with pictures, but it's really nicely done, and I actually still have it. That since then, I've been in love with the GT-R. It's always been a dream car, and to actually have one now, you get to drive it every day, or as often as I'm able to drive it, is a treat. So, absolutely loving the car. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more GT-R videos. Thanks.